Hello, world and YouTube and everybody around orbit, you know, that can get YouTube. Uh, I'm gonna read my own story. This thing, that's my tape. I have I put the tape on there so no one can look at me while I type. You know, when I speak my mind. uh, I'm gonna read you a story I made, and it's about a perfectly good fishing day. And anyway, so I'm gonna read it right now, and I hope you enjoy and stay for the whole thing. I notice a lot of times people want to see like something entertaining or whatever, but I hope you stay and listen to the whole story because uh, it's it's a message to everybody. I hope everyone can take something out of it, at least something positive, you know? Anyway, in 1994, three people went fishing. They fished all day. The day they had picked was an excellent day. The weather was fair, not warm, not too cold. It was a perfect day to go fishing. The day, the dad, uncle, and nephew, for the majority of the day, hadn't caught anything. They went fishing only a few times per year. After several hours, the uncle's line started to shake. The uncle went to check the line. Ring! You know that sound the line makes? The sound the fishing line makes when you reel it in? Oh, nothing, the uncle said in disappointment. They were all fishing at the river, with fishing rods embedded in the dirt. The fish took the bait, but got away. A few hours went by, and it was the little boy, only 4, no more than 5 years old, who had caught the only fish ever caught that day. With a huge smile, the kid showed the dad and uncle. The little kid's father took a picture. The fish was so big, it was half the size of the kid. The uncle was surprised such a fish slipped through his grasp earlier. The uncle replied, "That was my fish." After a long day of fishing, we jumped into the '79 Cadillac convertible. It was gold but looked brown under certain lights. Things seem all dandy. The car starts. The kid sat on his uncle's lap. When the kid looks behind in the back seat, the little boy is in horror. When he looks in the back seat, he sees an unfamiliar man sitting in the back seat, dressed in a suit of all things, with a tie totally inappropriate for the occasion, with neatly combed hair and arms crossed, similar to how the Secret Service looked, but it was more like this, you know, like that downward on the lap, like this, you know, like it's pretty intense, you know, and pretty scary, you know. The car starts. The kid sat on his uncle's lap. When the kid looks behind in the back seat, the little boy is in horror. When he looks in the back seat, he sees an unfamiliar man sitting in the back seat, dressed in a suit of all things, with a tie totally inappropriate for the occasion, with neatly combed hair and arms crossed, similar to how the Secret Service looked. The man was middle-aged, with black and white hair. He looked like a classic hitman look. He appeared of Mexican or Italian descent. The feeling and pressure coming from this quiet, well-dressed man that is sitting in the back seat was terrifying. For some reason, only looking at the man for only a few seconds, the little boy knew. Only the boy could see this man in the back seat. However, the two older gentlemen in the car could not. Only 3 people went into the car. How does that suddenly explain 4 suddenly in the car? 3 were familiar, but who was the 4th? The nephew grasped his uncle as if he was trying to pin his neck to the seat. The uncle was surprised to see his nephew in tears. The boy didn't know how to explain something the adults could not see. The young kid started to whimper and cry, as if the boy knew this was not a person sitting in the back seat. The kid was in utter shock, where the words couldn't be found. And what was in the back seat? The vocabulary wasn't there, therefore no hands could be described and what the kid saw. Words link us with images, descriptions, feelings, and possible memory. But the words just couldn't be outputted for the adult's input to give appropriate understanding. All the kid felt was sadness, fear, guilt, and straight up depression. Both the uncle and father mirrored each other as if an echo had bellowed. "What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong?" After the question was asked again and again and again and again and again, after the 13th time asked, the boy began to question what he saw. After all, the kid had closed his eyes hoping to understand how someone could suddenly appear out of nowhere. The boy started to second guess what he saw after all the adults were asking, "What's wrong?" so many times. There's nothing to worry about. The kid peeked around the seat again. The man was gone. How did the man vanish without opening the door? This was the last week of the uncle. He died later on that week. No matter how hard the kid grabbed the uncle, no matter how much he didn't want the man to even see his uncle, he realized early on that death at the early age of 35 was way too young. The nephew grabbed his uncle in a "please don't go" manner. But to his efforts, fate, if you will, couldn't be altered, fixed, or modified. Things were set in stone. Although the uncle died later that week, he seemed healthy while he was fishing and in the car. Cherish the moments we have with each other, because one moment you can be perfectly healthy, and the next moment you're in the emergency room. Pages stuck together. I don't like to lick my fingers. It may seem meaningless now, but it's important we leave a good last impression of ourselves. Not just towards the end, when we know it's closing in, but all throughout our life. Because you never know what God has planned for us. Remember, when you leave the house to work or school or wherever, remember not to take people for granted. Even a regular day in the office could potentially be a tragedy. Just getting out of bed could be harmful. You can slip and fall, hurt yourself. Many people take every day for granted. And that's how accidents happen. It could be something small that turned into a much larger problem. Citizens of all race, age, and shapes and sizes may find themselves in an automobile accident one day. Everything would seem wonderful. The next, you were hit by a drunk driver or soccer mom. A perfectly good fishing day, a calm morning drive. Walking on a wet surface may all have some risk. The majority of the time you'll be fine. However, there are few I wonder what happened. What was the build-up to consider? Small things matter. Was this piece to call out the unusual or concerning? Yes. Unusual when things look out of place. Yes. This also brings us together to think about factors that led up to this. Hopefully, a perfectly good fishing day or quiet drive or routine schedule doesn't blind us from considering ourselves and others' health and well-being. Some tragedies take an instant to occur. Others can take years to accumulate. It was mentioned the uncle did pass on. However, his lifestyle was full of injuries, drinking, and diabetes. He had high blood pressure and had a one hand that didn't work at all. He had injured it on a job. Despite being compensated, it did him no good. Tim was his name. Tim had a hand now that was smashed. Tim's hand was damaged where he could not use it. This affected his ability to work. Since he could not go back to work, this affected him mentally and physically. Tim relied on going to work to get his exercise. After he could no longer go back to his job that he loved, his old habits might have gotten the best of him. Tim's best times were with family. He enjoyed a very long prayer before he passed on. No one had anything bad to say about Tim. Tim looked so much like his younger brother. Medical insurance wasn't the same as it stands today. Tim was a good man. To put a smile on your face and have a drink. That's it. Hope you guys enjoyed my story. I wrote it, and it wasn't based off any like news story or anything like that. It was, it was all up here. Anyway, like, subscribe, and share if you could. That would be appreciated. Thank you.